In the deep woods of Maine lies a small town named Ravenwood. A place shrouded in mystery, Ravenwood was once a thriving, welcoming community. But over the years, a dark presence has cast a long shadow over the town. Ravenwood's past is as dense as the surrounding forest, filled with tales of haunting shadows and eerie whispers in the night. Some locals even swear they've seen demonic figures lurking amongst the trees. Yet these stories are spoken in hushed voices, as if the mere mention of them could summon the malevolent forces that plague the town. The feeling of unease is palpable in Ravenwood. It's like a cold wind that cuts right through you, chilling you to the bone. It's a sensation that's hard to shake off, a persistent feeling that you're being watched by unseen eyes. And it's not just in the dead of night when this feeling creeps in. Even in the light of day, there's an ominous aura that lingers in the air, a sense of dread that refuses to dissipate. The town's history is steeped in darkness, with rumors of a satanic cult that once dwelled here. The cult's sinister rituals performed under the cover of night are said to have summoned demonic creatures from the depths of the forest. Whether these tales are true or simply the product of overactive imaginations, they've become an inseparable part of Ravenwood's identity. The locals live in fear of the shadows, their lives haunted by the terrifying figures they believe lurk in the woods. Mysterious disappearances have only added fuel to the fire, causing the remaining villagers to lock their doors tight and pray for safety as night falls. And then Sarah and her family moved into the old cabin in the woods. Unbeknownst to them, they were about to become part of Ravenwood's chilling narrative, stepping into a world where nightmares bleed into reality. Their arrival marked a new chapter in the town's dark history, one that would change the course of Ravenwood forever. From the moment Sarah stepped foot into Ravenwood, she felt an ominous presence. A chill ran down her spine, a sense of unease settling deep within her. The quaint small-town charm of Ravenwood was overshadowed by an unsettling quietude, a silence that screamed volumes. The towering trees whispered secrets only they knew, their shadows dancing like specters in the moonlight. Sarah's new home, a rustic cabin nestled deep in the woods, was a world away from the bustling city life she was used to. Her parents, however, were quick to dismiss her unease as nothing more than the jitters of settling into an unfamiliar place. They were captivated by the idyllic beauty of their new surroundings, oblivious to the creeping dread that gripped their daughter. But Sarah wasn't one to be easily dismissed. She was an explorer, a seeker of truths, and she couldn't shake off that feeling of being watched, of being unwelcome. The whispers of the wind grew louder in her ears, the rustling of leaves sounding like hushed conversations. Every creak of the cabin, every flicker of light through the dense foliage sent her heart racing, as if something or someone was lurking in the shadows. The locals were friendly, yet guarded. Their smiles didn't quite reach their eyes, their laughter a little too forced. They welcomed the new family with polite nods and tight-lipped smiles, but Sarah could sense the hesitation, the fear lurking beneath their cordial facade. Sarah's nights were restless, filled with strange dreams and distant echoes of hushed whispers. The once comforting darkness of the night seemed ominous, the silhouettes of the trees outside her window appearing like monstrous figures. Her parents attributed it to the stress of moving, but Sarah knew better. There was something deeply unsettling about Ravenwood, something that toyed with her sanity. As days passed, nights in Ravenwood became more disturbing. The eerie calm of the day gave way to a sinister quiet at night, the darkness teeming with unseen threats, and Sarah knew this was just the beginning of her unsettling welcome to Ravenwood. Sarah began to have vivid nightmares of demonic creatures calling her from the woods. It wasn't just the eerie whispering winds or the nocturnal rustling of leaves that unsettled her, but the hauntingly real visions that invaded her dreams. Sarah would often wake in a cold sweat, the echo of demonic laughter ringing in her ears, and a feeling of being watched that lingered long after daylight broke. Her curiosity piqued, and her fear not yet overshadowing her determination, Sarah began to delve into the history of Ravenwood. She found herself drawn to the town's library, its musty corners filled with tales of the past. As she sifted through dusty tomes and faded newspaper clippings, a disturbing narrative began to emerge. Sarah uncovered tales of a satanic cult that had once inhabited the area. The cult was known for its dark rituals, ones that were rumored to have invited the demonic forces that now appeared to be plaguing Ravenwood. The stories were chilling, filled with ominous chants and macabre rites that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. The cult had seemingly vanished decades ago, but their insidious influence, it seemed, lingered on. Sarah's nightmares grew more intense, more vivid, as she delved deeper into the town's history. She could hear the cult's haunting chants in her dreams, feel the chill of their rituals, and see the dark figures they summoned from the shadows. Yet each nightmare, each chilling discovery, only fueled her determination to uncover the truth. The tension escalated one fateful night, when curiosity led Sarah beyond the safety of her cabin and into the heart of the woods. There, amidst the towering trees and under the watchful moon, she came face to face with a figure darker than the night itself. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and a paralyzing terror gripped Sarah, rooting her to the spot. One night, Sarah came face to face with a dark figure in the woods. The encounter was brief, but it confirmed Sarah's worst fears. The demons of Ravenwood were more than just urban legends. They were real, and they were watching. As Sarah explored the surroundings of her cabin, a dark, twisted figure appeared between the trees. The figure was a specter of pure dread, its form obscured and distorted by the inky blackness of the forest. Its eyes, however, glowed with a supernatural luminescence, piercing through the darkness like a beacon. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest like a war drum, her breath hitching in her throat. The figure's gaze felt like icy tendrils wrapping around her, squeezing the warmth from her body. The forest, once filled with the soft whispers of the wind and the rustling of leaves, fell ominously silent. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to run, but her legs felt rooted to the ground, ensnared by the creature's hypnotic stare. Then the figure moved. It was a slow, deliberate motion, like a predator stalking its prey. This was enough to break Sarah's paralysis. She turned on her heels and ran, the terror lending her speed she never knew she had. Her heart pounded in her ears, drowning out the sounds of her own frantic breaths. Branches whipped against her face as she sprinted through the underbrush, but she barely noticed the sting. All she could focus on was the chilling presence that seemed to be closing in on her. As she burst through the tree line, the cabin came into view. Her sanctuary, her haven. With one last surge of adrenaline, she threw herself through the front door, slamming it shut behind her. The familiar creak of the wooden floor beneath her feet and the sight of her own belongings offered a small but vital sense of security. Panting heavily, she slid down the door, her heart still racing. As she looked out through the window into the enveloping darkness, she could still feel the figure's gaze boring into her. It was then she truly understood. Sarah knew then, the demons of Ravenwood were more than just urban legends. The chilling tales of the locals were all too real. The darkness had a face now, a face she would never forget. As the demons became bolder, Sarah decided to speak with the locals. The few brave souls who dared to voice their fears painted a chilling picture of life in Ravenwood. One old man, a lifelong resident of the town, shared his haunting tale about strange shadows that would flicker and dance between the trees at night. His voice trembled as he spoke of his missing friends, snatched away in the dead of night, their cries echoing through the once peaceful forest. A young woman, barely out of her teens, shared a similar story. She talked about the eerie whispers that filled the air after sunset, whispering names and chilling promises. She confessed to seeing demonic figures lurking in the shadows, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Her voice broke as she recounted the night her little brother vanished, leaving behind only an empty bed and a sense of dread that refused to fade. Sarah's conversation with the town's baker was equally disturbing. He spoke of the dread that gripped him each time the sun dipped below the horizon, and the silent prayers he would whisper to ward off the encroaching darkness. He admitted to spotting twisted figures moving silently through the woods, their presence an omen of the terror that the night would bring. His voice shook as he confessed that he feared his daughter would be the next to disappear. Each story was more terrifying than the last, painting a vivid picture of a town held captive by fear, a place where the shadows held sinister secrets and every creak of a branch or rustle of leaves sent shivers down the spines of its residents. These interviews revealed a shared experience of dread, a communal nightmare that was all too real. Sarah realized the only way to save Ravenwood was to face the dark forces. The courage of these locals, their willingness to share their chilling encounters, only strengthened her resolve. She knew she had to confront the terror that lurked in the woods, for the sake of her new home and the people who had suffered for far too long. Sarah was determined to fight the darkness consuming Ravenwood. Her resolve was as unyielding as the ancient oaks that surrounded the haunted village. She knew it was not just about her or her family anymore. The stakes were higher. It was about the survival of an entire village, the survival of Ravenwood. Sarah and her allies ventured into the heart of the haunted woods. The chilling air was heavy with a sense of foreboding, and every rustle of leaves seemed to whisper a warning. They moved cautiously, their hearts pounding in their chests like war drums in the silent night. As they delved deeper, the forest seemed to come alive, breathing with an eerie rhythm that matched their fear. The moonlight filtering through the twisted branches cast long, monstrous shadows that danced and flickered, creating a macabre puppet show on the leaf-strewn ground. The paranormal activity intensified. Shadows detached themselves from the darkness, sliding along the edges of their vision. Unseen branches snapped in the distance. An owl hooted, its call echoing in the stillness, a lonely sentinel's cry in the night. Each sound, each movement, was a cold hand reaching out from the darkness, brushing against their sanity. Sarah's breath hitched as she felt a sudden chill, an invisible shroud enveloping her. Her heart hammered against her ribs as a whisper slithered through the air, winding around them like an ethereal serpent. It was an ancient language, a forgotten chant echoing from the depths of the forest, resonating with a power that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. The whispers grew louder, a symphony of voices, each one a thread in the dark tapestry of Ravenwood's past. They spoke of ancient rituals, of shadows that moved and demons that laughed. They spoke of a darkness that had seeped into the heart of the forest, a festering wound on the land. They were in the belly of the beast now, surrounded by the palpable presence of something ancient and malevolent. Each step further into the forest was a step closer to the source of the darkness. Sarah could feel it, a magnetic pull, a call from the heart of the forest that was both terrifying and compelling. In the darkest part of the woods, Sarah felt a chilling presence. It was a confrontation she knew had been coming, a face-off with the dark forces that had taken hold of Ravenwood. It was as if the entire forest held its breath, the eerie silence amplifying the pounding of her heart in her chest. But she was not alone. Those brave enough had joined her, standing together against the unseen menace. The demons of Ravenwood were no longer mere whispers in the night. They were a tangible terror, a stark reality that Sarah and her allies had to confront. There were moments of sheer terror, times when hope seemed lost. Yet, amidst it all, there was a glimmer of courage, a spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. As the shadows closed in, Sarah's fate and that of Ravenwood hung in the balance. The question remained, could they withstand the darkness that lurked deep within the forest?